Welcome to the Digital Agency Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Englander.
Marquis, nice to have you on again.
It's good to be back, Dan. Thanks so much.
Yeah, we were just chatting. So you just had a big move, right? So you're in the country, seaside villa. It sounds like.
That's right. Yeah, while we're waiting for our house to be ready, we got a couple of days still. We're staying in this seaside cottage, and it's pretty small, but the views are great, and the town is awesome. So we're just trying to make the most of it and get outside and explore as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we're definitely done with living out of suitcases and boxes. We're ready to go home and unpack.
Yeah, that sounds nice. And as a little sidebar before we get into a bigger conversation about agency operations and stuff, how is your motivation and working in the country compared to not the country?
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice because like I said, the views are great. So when I'm working, I'm sitting in a little sunroom right now. I can see the water right out there, and I can see cars driving by as well. My kids are playing outside, so it's really nice. It's a great environment for any work, not focused work, I'd say, but if you're looking to get creative or get some inspiration, yeah, this is definitely my preferred way to work.
Yeah, totally. And kind of tying into more of what you guys do. Can you talk a little bit about first I want to get into like how you're communicating with your own employees and stuff, but before that, your backgrounds, Ditto, and what you're up to for those that don't know you.
Yeah, sure. So Ditto is a systems improvement and process improvement consultancy. And so we work with our customers to help them streamline how they work, streamline where the work is done, and create documentation around how that work is done. Ultimately, we're trying to create clarity for team members who are used to either working, in silos or have trouble finding where work is done, getting status on work, trying to find files, all the things that, keep teams from actually focusing on skilled work. We work to bring clarity and bring light to those areas so that teams can work more efficiently. And so we help them document their standard operating procedures. We help to implement software to make work easier. If automation is needed, we integrate that as well. But ultimately, we want to work to help teams, work more efficiently. So that's a bit about what we do. A lot of what I do came out of a need that I had in a previous business that I had called Media Create. It was a marketing agency. And, what I found is that as I started to bring on team members and bring on new clients, there was this need for me to start documenting my processes because a lot of my time was being devoted to retraining and talking about the same things over and over again to my team members until one day I just thought, why don't I just write this down? Or I actually decided to use loom.com. Why don't I just record a video, show you how to do it? So the next time that you or someone else has a question, you can just go and review that resource. I don't have to keep doing this over and over again. And so it really just snowballed from there. And we're at this place right now. It's 6 years later, and business is doing well, and we're thriving and growing.
Yeah, that's great. And it's funny because it makes me think that it seems like finding really good operators and people that have like a strong operational mindset, and I guess that ties to a strong managerial mindset, is like really rare. And as a business owner, it's something you kind of develop over time. At least I have personally. So I love that, like, people always ask questions more about the top of the P&L, like the revenue, like, is there a natural born salesperson? And there's a lot more attention and bright lights focused on the top half of the P&L, not so much the bottom part, which is where the money's actually made. So to bring this to a question, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, do you think that you always had a predilection towards operational thinking and like attention to detail, or is that something that you got into and developed over time?
Great question. Yeah. I mean, if I do think back, depends on how far back you want to go, but if we look at childhood, and as I think back, there are absolutely areas of my life where I feel like I've always been this systems and operations person. To put it really practically, in everyday life, for me, it's always been everything has its place. The shoes are turned this way. When I come in the house, my wedding ring goes in the same spot every single day, right? And I know that it's there. As a kid, creating drafts of buildings and sketches and organizing my room and my various compartments, like all of those things has always been in order and a way that we go about things. And in one of my previous careers, I was an operations manager for a large fitness facility. And so a lot of the systems that I work with right now, I feel like I learned on a more professional level when I was in the corporate space. And so, just having a way that things work, having scripts, having playbooks to follow, I feel like I was really in that space, and it's really helped and propelled me to the place I'm at right now. Even making the jump from marketing agency owner to operations consultant really tells a story, because I got into the marketing space because it's what I did professionally. I'm starting as a freelancer and then, starting my agency. But I realized through, like I said, bringing on team members and having to train them and develop systems, that it wasn't marketing that was my passion. It was really operations. And it really took me trying to build my own business to realize that though marketing and sales are obviously important, that's not where I love to be. I love to be in the operations and the structuring and laying out of these foundations so that you can grow, and so that now I can spend more time on my marketing and on my sales, and then even create more systems around there. So that's really where I love to thrive.
That's great. And are there 1 or 3 or 5 like consistent skill sets or qualities that you think go into a really good operator that you've seen?
Yeah. If I have to think real quick, I mean, the ability to make decisions and be decisive, I think, is one of them, right? Like, if we take too long and we want to explore all the options and all the angles, I mean, there's a certain level of analytics that needs to come to it. You need to review data to make some of these decisions. But I think if you're constantly going back and being indecisive, I don't think you're going to make a good operator, because you have to be able to make decisions and have your team trust you that the decision you're making is the best one for the business. You need to be forward thinking and have the ability to, what I, sometimes will say, like, look into the matrix. Like, when you're making the decision, what are the possible outcomes? What are the variables? If you can do that and draft it out on paper or in software, or just sit down and have that focused time to look at it, I think the ability to see the different variables and make some comparisons is huge as well. I have a project management, background as well. And so I think that's really helped me in the work that I do, just understanding that, when it comes to systems and process improvements, can't do everything all at once. There are steps that need to be taken. Change management is there for a reason, right? We can't roll out everything all at once. We have to take certain steps and follow specific practices to make sure that we're rolling things out effectively. We're communicating to our team. There's training and resources that are available there. And then we're really setting up our teams to be successful on the adoption side of things as well. So yeah, I think being analytical, being decisive, and then having the ability to create some kind of system and structure for success of the team.
Yeah, that's really great. And I love the look into the matrix phrasing. I think that's catchy. And I think part of that, and part that I've taken for granted, is the length of the feedback loop, right? Where it's like some decisions you'll get a feedback loop right away, but then others are going to take a while to play out, right? So especially like, for example, like one of them is like client retention, keeping clients around, like that might take 6 or 12 months to actually run its course and figure out if a small change you made had that effect. But then people don't always take that into account, and then all of a sudden it's like, let's try this out, and it's like you don't even know what you're looking at right now, or whether it's working or not working. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, on the operations side, are there areas where people are expecting a quick experimental result that take longer, or vice versa, that drive you crazy maybe?
I think it depends on the goals of the business, how lean your operating team is, because for us, we recently changed our approach to receiving customer satisfaction information. And so we had a much longer, too long, in my opinion, survey that we would send out, at certain parts of the project, and we'd receive feedback from a small, handful of selected individuals. And so we've recently started to send out more like NPS, survey information. We have our standard CSAT now as well. And prior to that, I feel like we were making changes that were good changes, but we're making changes based on the feedback of 1 or 2 people without understanding what the broader experience was like for the rest of our customers. So I think by having systems like that in place, where you're, asking the people that matter at the right times as well, right? After they've had a chance to actually go through your process a little bit, give you that feedback and get a more granular overview of what, their experience has looked like. I think that's super important. And then, like I said earlier, it depends on how your operating team is set up. And so there are some internal changes we know we need to make that are quick to make. right? And we can just say, we got to do this. It's a must have. It's not going to take us a long time. And so how we evaluate those needs within Ditto is we have a workflow set up where any new ideas can be submitted by a team member. It could be feedback from a customer, or it could be something that someone on our team wanted to implement, or see that as an opportunity to implement. We go through and we evaluate what the impact to the business. Is this urgent and important? Is it important but not urgent? Can we delay this? What will this look like? How will this impact Ditto for the better? Really is always the question that we want to answer. We evaluate that with our leadership team. We put in our own thoughts around rolling out this new idea. We assess how long we think it's going to take our internal team as far as hours go. And then if we have availability and internal budget for it, then we resource that and put that task into progress after it's been approved and validated. And so some of it, we need the feedback from the customers, and other things is like, let's just do it because it won't take us long and it's going to have huge impact and return on the business. And so we like to think of it from those two lenses and then make decisions based on that. But sometimes I'm guilty for seeing one of those ideas and thinking that's a great idea. I don't even ask anybody else. I just go and do it. I mean, if it's not great, it's not great. I still have to get out of that headspace. But for the most part, we make those decisions as a team.
Yeah. And I think kind of part of that is the topic of meeting cadence, which I don't think is talked about enough. And I think there's kind of two different tendencies. One is to be I don't want to be the person that's having the unnecessary meeting. So you just don't have them, or everybody's just kind of in their own little bubble, or you're having unnecessary meetings all the time. The classic hashtag, this meeting could have been an email kind of thing.
Right.
So can you talk about that? What's the Ditto, and maybe you can give people context on your head count, how many people you are and everything first, but what does your meeting cadence look like? And not just with the whole team, but with individual teams and that sort of thing as well.
That's great. Yeah, we're approaching 30 on our team right now, and that's made up between specialists, so system specialists, whether they be Asana specific or HubSpot specific. We have business analysts that do a lot of the heavy lifting, workflow mapping, and work with our customers. We have project managers, and then developers, and then we have a small admin operations team, a couple finance people, and then a couple marketers as well that work in-house. And so we've had to really evaluate our meeting frequency, because there's definitely been a lot of meetings we've had where, someone will, just book a meeting for the sake of it. Maybe there's a conversation running along in Slack and they just said, what, let's just book a meeting. And it's things like that I don't love, but it's hard to keep a real handle on all of it when you can't be in all places at once as a leader. And so we used to, every single Monday, we would have a hour-long operation stand up, and it was an hour where the project manager would lead it, and we'd go over status of all the projects. And then I would meet with the leadership team individually for our one-on-ones. And then some of those members would meet with their team for one-on-ones. So just on a Monday alone, I don't know, we're probably spending 30, 40 hours, just on meetings alone, and all those different rates. And so it was really inefficient. And as a result, of operating expenses were very high, right? Because this could have been a status update. It could have been an update to a project in Asana. And so we removed that. We've stopped doing those weekly meetings. We have a bi-weekly project manager meeting where our senior PM just breaks down the status of the projects. All the information's already been input into Asana. It's the PM's responsibility to review it, update their estimates and their forecasts for the project, look at capacity, and then come to that meeting with more this is what's happening. So now we have a 20 to 30 minute meeting with 4 people instead of X amount of people, right? And then I have my capacity and finance meetings with my finance person and my senior PM, and then my admin assistant. So we have 4 30-minute meetings on Mondays now versus having to bring in all these other people. And so it's really helped us to understand what's important, what can be left to a quick message, or something in Asana. We don't do internal emails, but it's just a quick message. And then it's helped us to better rely on our tools. So in Asana, we have an agenda for every single meeting, and it's your responsibility that if there is a meeting, you are creating that agenda, you're putting in your thoughts, you're tagging people early so they can see the agenda, get their thoughts on it, so we can be efficient in those meetings. right? And it's not all about saving a buck, even though that's super important, but it's why do we need this meeting? If we have 30 minutes and we're done in 15, let's go. Let's get back to doing something else, right? Nobody wants to be stuck on a meeting. So that stuff has really helped. And we just won't have meetings unless there is an agenda. Then it's like, what are we talking about? Why are we here? And then we're wasting time doing the how's your weekend? How's your day? What are we talking about today? And then trying to establish what the purpose for that meeting is while we're on there. And then the next thing you know, it's been 45 minutes and we're all, needing to get off the call to go to our next meeting. So
Right.
It's definitely helped to standardize how we approach meetings and again, what the frequency is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a lot we can dig into. And I think we'll put a pin in that regarding tools. But first, I think you touched on something interesting, which is the how's your day, the small talk and all that sort of thing. And I'm always split on that because it's like, on one hand, we're all remote. There is, the culture element to that and everything. On the other hand, it does end up adding up. And it's like, once you have 5-10 people doing that, half the meeting's gone. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like how and where is culture built at a place like Ditto? Offsites, do you do them? How often? What do you do with those things? Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm not the best person for this. As I've just alluded to, I'm not the how was your weekend, kind of guy, but there is place for it and it is important, the culture, especially in this remote landscape. And so we have a client success manager who typically leads that culture, is checking in on people, is creating those like internal events. We haven't had one for a while now, but at Christmas we had like a party, just a virtual party. We hired a company to come in and kind of do a themed night. And then we have planned lunches as well, where you can just kind of jump in, on Zoom for an hour, every now and then just to like chat and talk about life. So there's definitely those times where we are intentional about creating that space where we can build relationships. On calls, we're usually 5, 7, 10 minutes in, just catching up. If it's been a while or, we've had a weekend or, we are a close team. And so we often will bring our family into it. If someone's sick or someone's dog had surgery, like we're talking about that stuff. And a lot of us are pet owners. And so we'll spend some time chatting about that. Outside of the meetings and the team events, we have a channel in Slack called Water Cooler, where that is just anything and everything. I went skiing this weekend, or I'm moving to another province, and I'm driving 2 days with my dog by myself. Send your positive vibes. It's things like that where we're sending pictures of our real lives. We're sending updates on what's happening, what we're doing, what we're interested in. We have another one called the Book Club, where if we're reading something, we just put a snippet of the book. We're putting podcasts in there that, inspired us. And so we're starting to see the real people outside of just the work. And then that sparks other conversations. People find similarities on TV shows they love to watch, and then they go and have a private channel where they nerd out about that. And so if we can create more of those spaces, more opportunities for the team just to connect one-on-one, it doesn't feel like it needs to be a thing that's structured into the 5 to 10 minutes at the start of a meeting, because if that's what you're limited to, people come to expect it. And then people come to dread it because they don't know what to talk about, and there's no opportunity to build and grow in between as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And to switch gears a little bit, what sounds like one of the main things that you're focusing on for yourselves and for clients is the idea of resource management and capacity and these sorts of questions. And I think for better or worse, with the labor squeeze in this past year, I think it's sort of allowed a lot of companies to broad frame how they think about their internal resources. And, maybe it's you're hiring a company to do certain things, or you're hiring somebody to do multiple things, or whatever it might be. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, what, in terms of your better clients, how are they thinking about resource management and how are you helping them?
I'd say even with our best clients, they're not thinking about resource management. They're coming to us because they need a solution for resource management. And so what we're prescribing for them is what we do, is what we practice, what we execute every single day. We use 2 tools. Along with Asana, we have our estimated hours. We can see who's working on what. We have a really nice Gantt chart where we can see, workload and capacity at a really high level. And then there are 2 tools that we rely on very heavily to give us even more granular information. The first one is Harvest. I think it's getharvestapp.com. time tracking tool integrates with Asana, and then Harvest makes another tool that is specific to capacity and workload called Forecast. And so those two tools, speak to each other. There's a two-way sync between the two of them. We are time tracking everything from our marketing to our time it takes to onboard a client to the time it takes to work through individual tasks. And so we have everyone's working hours in there. We're tracking all of our time. And then, like I said earlier, the PMs are overseeing the forecasted estimates of all the projects for all the team members. So we can start to see nice and early, because we're planning usually 30 to 45 days out. We can start to see really early who has capacity, who has potential to be overloaded, who's going to be away and unavailable, and how can we plan for projects around that? Because one of the big things is, when can we start a new project? I'm in the sales process now. When can we start a new project? Who's available? And oftentimes it's, I don't know. Can we take on a new project? Can we start this new campaign? Can we do, you name it, ABC, right? A lot of our customers, they don't have that information. And so a lot of it is like taking those steps to figure out how can we bucket the different tasks that we need to complete, getting those into Harvest, assigning time and budgets based on projects, whether that's internal teams or client work that's available that we're doing. And then what are our estimates from the team as to how long it's going to take to complete those said tasks? And then it's monitoring the time and the limit versus the actuals. And that's where our project managers will come back in. And so it's nice because you come out of this looking at all this data. What did we think it was going to take us? How long is it actually taking us? Right? We do our retrospectives at the end of a cycle of a project. We can see how well did we do, and what do we need to change to move forward. And that's where process improvement then comes in. What information can we take from what we've already done, and how can we use that to make things better, be more efficient, to affect our bottom line, and make our company more efficient.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I would just say on the sales side, one thing that's helped us a lot and probably our better clients is simply advertising that capacity to prospects, right? And it's in being genuine about it, because it's actual genuine scarcity. It's not just you making up an arbitrary exploding offer or something. It's like, here's our capacity, here's why it is the way it is. You might not show anyone a spreadsheet of your hours or something, but just being upfront about that and knowing what it is helps a lot, and telling people that, so that can go a long way. And kind of digging into that a little more, it sounds like, Harvest, Asana, this tool Forecast. How do you think about tools and also training people on them? Like, one thing that we've sort of encountered in our company is that some of our team are much more technical, and then they end up taking on certain roles that we didn't necessarily plan out for them, but it kind of works out because they're just really good at a certain technical aspect and other people aren't. So they end up kind of floating around helping on different projects versus having like an assigned role. So my question's all over the place, but I'd love to hear like your thoughts on who's inputting the data and who's like handling certain duties related to like the technical aspects of these tools. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would have to say that there's definitely a time where, your team just kind of has to jump in and, help wherever you need them to. I think that's important, that we're agile and flexible, and we want team players that just say, yeah, whatever you need, coach, throw me in. But at a certain point, there has to be some clarity around roles, who's doing what, by when, because I think that can lead to other issues down the road. But as far as, for us, who's doing what, we want to make sure that our specialists, so I mentioned earlier, we have Asana specialists, HubSpot specialists, and then our business analysts, they do really much all the heavy lifting for our project. And there are stats and studies that show that up to 60% of our time is spent outside of actually doing work, and 27% is spent on skilled work, the skilled work that we are good at, we're hired to do. So we want to increase that skilled work number as far as how we're spending our time, and reducing the amount of time on non-work things. And that could be confusion, understanding how to use a new tool, being in useless meetings. And so as much as we can, we want to limit the population of that data to our project managers, to our admin people, to our senior PMs, so that our SMEs can focus on the client work. If they're spending, like, we could onboard them into Forecast and say, hey, learn this new tool, put all your estimates in there. But honestly, it's easier for them to just put that in Asana next to the task they're working on. And then the PM exports all that information and puts it in forecast so that the rest of the leadership team can get that information. Because if we're expecting them now to like come in and learn a new tool and figure this out and see all that other information, it's just going to cloud their field of view and keep them from actually focusing on the work and delivering the best they can for their customers. So
Yeah, I think that's good. And that's kind of like the idea of emphasizing the higher paid time. Like there's the idea of like $100 an hour task, $500 an hour task, and that exists for each and every role. So that makes a lot of sense. And the next question might be just as unintelligible, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on software innovation, right? Because it sounds like you guys are focused on certain core software products like Harvest and Asana. I guess my question is like, what would need to happen for you guys to switch or upgrade to a new platform? Like, do you think that these platforms are kind of at maturity, or is there a way that somebody could build a better mousetrap and you'd be like, we're transitioning to this thing? Like, are there things where you're like, okay, if this features were added on a new product, it would be a no-brainer to switch? Or do you think at this point we're just kind of like at this plateau or this stasis, I guess?
That's the trap in itself, thinking that like another tool kind of just fix the problem. And we made a big change, a few weeks ago. We recently turned off Calendly and switched because we HubSpot internally, HubSpot had recently made some improvements to their meeting tool. It's not perfect. It's not what Calendly had, but for us, it just made more sense to have that functionality in our CRM that we use every single day for everything else. And so we made the decision to remove a tool. And that's what I often say is like, when we're talking about improvement, it doesn't always mean that you need to add something, right? Because that adds confusion and can lead to uncertainty for the team. And so we actually removed something, changed our process, because that's what it really is. It's important to have a process and agree we're all going to do this thing the same way versus thinking a tool will change it for you. So that's one of the changes we made. Would we ever take one of our tools right now and make a change? I mean, I don't know. I feel like you'd have to be pig's fly or something for me to ever not use Asana. And I think there's something to be said about loyalty. And because we are partners of these tools, we're partners with 1Password, we're partners with Lucid, we're partners with QBO, and we use all of these. We're partners with Harvest, HubSpot, Asana, like I said. And so we believe in these tools. We promote these tools. We create content to help our customers and others, better utilize these tools. And from an Asana perspective, we're one of their preferred partners up in Canada. I have a YouTube channel dedicated to Asana, and people find Ditto via YouTube, come in, and they know I have a solution for their problems. So that would include having to change the entire business model. That'd be a really good use case for it. But what my point is that we're spending this time investing, and the closer we get to their product teams, to their decision makers, we can start to influence change in those software tools as well. So I think if you really believe in it and you think there's something there, I would say work with what you got. It doesn't matter what tool you're using. Just spend time, learn it, be the best at it. Make sure that you spend time training your team as well. So yeah, I'll just wrap that up by saying, no, I don't think we'd ever change. I think we just keep improving and iterating.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And I also think that it's a great reminder that like a lot of the times you're working with this lump of clay and it's about shaving parts off to build the statue. It's not just like adding stuff to it. So that's a great way to put it. And switch gears again, it sounds like you have a channel, for your team about books. I'd love to hear just like what books have influenced you on the operations front or anywhere else.
Yeah, probably once a year, I read Michael Gerber's The E-Myth Revisited. That's something that, continues to inspire me and is one of the things that helped me really kickstart my business several years ago. But I'm currently reading Alignment by Jonathan Hensley. Like you, Dan, he was a guest on my podcast recently and has a book. And so I recently got into that one, but it talks about aligning your team and the people within it around a common goal. It's common practice now to just kind of bark orders to your team and say, kind of do this, but it's also important to help them to understand why we're doing this, where are we going, how is this important to the overall organization and the movement of the organization. And so what I'm taking away from that right now is better defining not just the role, but the responsibilities. And so now I like waist deep in this analogy about football players and how the quarterback does this and the coach does that and the running back does this. And I'm putting together this visual for our team so they can better understand how do they fit into this overall landscape that is Ditto. How are we all moving the ball down the field, gaining yards as we move towards our goalpost, which is our 2025 Vivid Vision that we released in February. And so that's one of the books right now that I'm really into. I'm almost done it. And then I'm going to jump right into your book, Dan, and get that read cover to cover so we can chat about that next. But yeah, that's one of the ones that is inspiring me right now. And I've communicated already some of the things around knowledge retention, knowledge transfer from this same book to my leadership team, and the importance of sharing your knowledge so that we can all gain insight from the knowledge that you have. So yeah, there's quite a few takeaways there, but I'm really enjoying it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. That sounds like some big shoes to fill. So hopefully my book is helpful. It'll be a little less profound, but hopefully useful. So I appreciate that.
Great. It's gonna be great.
I mean, it's tough to escape these the sports metaphors. They just work so well, you know. Like even I'm not like I watch football once a year for the Super Bowl, but it's still I find myself using those metaphors all the time. So that makes a lot of sense.
I'm definitely a once a year guy. I actually had to go and Google all of the different players and positions to like try to draw correlations to our team roles. So I'm right there with you.
Right. I feel like you should adapt it to hockey since you're up north, but you know,
maybe. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's great. I'm reading a book called Hidden Games right now, which is about game theory, which is interesting. So it's kind of like why we do the things we do. It's all over the place. And then the other book that I've been repping a lot on the show is The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham, which is really fun. You know, it's kind of like a nice counterpoint to lots of other business books, because he makes the point that you have a job to do as a CEO. It's kind of tough for you to get out of the business, but a lot of the work is actually just like sitting around, like thinking about things and writing and making big decisions and stuff like that. So I definitely recommend the narration, because he's a great kind of like Southern draw, and he has lots of stories and stuff. So it's definitely a good read.
I'm gonna add that to the list.
Yeah, please do. We'll get all these linked up if anybody's interested. But Marquis, this is always fun. Let's do this again. And it's always good to kind of like focus on operations and the stuff that actually affects bottom line and the stuff that actually matters, instead of just the peacock feathers at the top that we focus on, right? So that's always good. Marquis, how can people follow what you're up to, get in touch, all that good stuff?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn pretty much all the time. Marquis Murray, Marquis. And then if you're into systems and you're using Asana, you want to learn more about that, you can find me on YouTube, either by searching my name or by searching Asana Solutions, and I'll come up there.
Awesome. We'll get that linked up. Marquis, thank you again.
Thanks so much, Dan. This is fun.